What's the worst well-inentend romantic gesture a so ever did for you? Bonus question: how did you react? Edit. Sorry for the typo in the question, was supposed to be well intended. We were out walking our dog and strolled past some flowers. He picked one and tried to place it behind my ear. The problem was he was also holding a bag of dog poop that was hitting against my face while he tried. My husband is such a goof, but sweet, but not what I'd call romantic. He's very practical, so instead of giving me Valentine's Day presents or flowers every year, he gets the oil changed in my car and leaves a note with a Valentine's theme. Sometimes it's a card if it's February, that says, "Oil is changed. Love you." First few years I was like, seriously. Now I swoon since I don't have to deal with the oil change place. Edit. I just told him a comment about him being practical and not romantic got me 2464 karma. He asked me what karma was good for. That's my man. My first boyfriend gave me a wooden box with a padlock on it for Christmas one year, handed me the key and told me not to open it until I got home. I opened it and inside was a little jar of his blood, and a little jar of his tears. I was 17 and mortified. Also couldn't fathom how he got enough tears to fill a small jar, so I asked him. Turns out he'd plucked all his nose hairs and eyelashes to gather them. I have a huge collection of cookie cutters because I love to bake. I kept them immaculately organized in small boxes, bags, etc., in the drawers of my kitchen island. Some had small pieces because they were things like snowflakes you cut multiple ways. Some had tiny individual letters for stamping messages. I also really have a lot of other kitchen things because I love to cook. He texted me at the start of an 8-hour barista shift that he was reorganizing our kitchen as a surprise for me and getting everything consolidated. I remember freaking out and begging him to not do it, and he was like, "No, it's good, I promise. It's too late. Don't worry." And then I got home and he had dumped all my cookie cutters into 2 huge reusable grocery bags, threw out any boxes or bags that were keeping sets and pieces together. So everything was loose and now impossible to find small bits. It was a huge disaster. I still think he threw out some actual cutters because almost 2 years later I still can't find some pieces. I cried for hours because I have been so careful over the years with my collection, and in one afternoon it all went to hell. Some of them got bent because they needed to be handled with care. He also emptied out some teas that were old, which had been favorites I rationed for bad days, that aren't made anymore. I feel bad that I went a little crazy and cried, but he just doesn't get how much he screwed up my collection that I spent years building and keeping neat. My ex-boyfriend surprised me and took me ice skating at Rockefeller Center for Christmas once. It was a really sweet idea, but he had said we were going to a show, so I was not dressed warmly at all. I was wearing a dress, tights, and a lighter but formal jacket, with no hat, gloves, or scarf. I was so cold after we had been on the ice for about 20 minutes that my lips turned blue and we had to leave. The thought behind it was really cute, but it would have gone so much better if I had been dressed appropriately. In the beginning of our relationship, he went on a trip to Rome with his family. He brought back some shoes for me, a 6'1" woman. He was so excited when he handed over those, pretty nice, size 6 slippers. It was hard to break to him that I loved them, and I loved the gesture, but I am a giant and a size 10.5. So he wasn't my but a guy who asked me to junior prom. He shows up to my house with our mutual friend, and a sign with a bouquet of flowers, right? Except the sign is written in Hindi, which I speak, but can't read or write. After blankly staring, I recognized 2 of the characters and they were P.M. It occurred to me that holy shit, that probably says prom, shocked face. I say yes and whatnot, but as soon as he leaves, my mom goes, he spelled it wrong. Lol, she's such a hater. Edit. I don't remember how he spelled it in Hindi, but it was basically proam, like Rome, but with a P. Haha. My guess is type prom in Google Translate Hindi and whatever comes up is what he wrote. Cheeky smiley face. I did think it was very sweet. My mom is just sassy. Yes, I'm Indian by birth. He knows I speak, so it was a fair-ish assumption to think I write, read. He gave me Milk Honey by Rupi Kaur and underlined the parts that applied to our relationship, including the parts about how fucked up and unhealthy it was and how we knew we needed to break up. For my birthday. He was confused when my reaction was just a lot of crying. Edit. I am a little late, but for clarification, he wasn't breaking up with me. He thought he was just being like sensitive and sweet? Like he underlined mainly the love parts but also stuff from the hurting section of the book. I did break up with him about 2 months later. Should have done it sooner, but glad I did it eventually. This helped me realize I had a pattern of dating sensitive guys that are not sensitive in the right ways. You all have helped me realize it's probably time to get rid of that book. I love lilacs. My date tried to drive up to a bush of them on my side of the car while rolling down my window, and all of the branches just crashed through my open window, scratching me all over my face and arm. I looked messed up. He felt so bad. I laughed in the WTF was that kind of way. Oh, I also didn't know that's what he was doing, so to me it was really WTF. A lot of these remind me of a story my friend told me about her first Christmas as an engaged couple living together. She wanted a new winter coat for Christmas, like that's all she wanted. They were out shopping and she found one she liked on sale and told him to get it and wrap it and be done with it. He was like, "No, I don't want you to see me buying it. That ruins the fun. Plus I bet I can find a better deal." Christmas comes and she opens her gift. It's a coat. Except, it's her old one. He tells her to look in the pocket. She's thinking maybe it's the receipt for a new one that's being shipped. Nope. $100. He's all excited that she can pick out exactly what she wants now. My ex got my initials tattooed over his heart. He surprised me with it. I pretended to be flattered. We broke up a year later. I wonder if he still has that tattoo. My boyfriend is an auto mechanic and he orders from Snap-on a lot. He was super excited because he ordered me something from Snap-on for me. Hyped it up so much, I was excited. It took a few months to arrive. It was 6 pairs of pink thick work socks. I started laughing because I thought it was hilarious and sweet. I was expecting like a flashlight or some cool tool for my car. Just some socks he thought I would like. I love socks, but I don't like pink and they are too thick for most of my shoes. TBH, I haven't worn them yet. I feel bad. My husband got me some pajamas for our first Christmas as a married couple from Victoria's Secret. One of the pajama sets had a shirt that said, "Single all the way." I was like, "Irm?" Hee hee, my ex bought me a bunch of lingerie we couldn't afford from VS and it was all too small. When I had to return it, the salesgirls all remembered him and thought it was sweet, but I had to explain that he had bought this with our food budget for the month and it didn't even fit, so could I please have it refunded to the payment method? Mortifying. Last year for Christmas he made me one of those cute signs that has a quote, "The date of our marriage" with a frame under it and the dates of our 3 children's births with frames underneath for their infant photos. Cute idea, but he overestimated the space he would need, and this fucker is huge. Like 3 ft tall and almost as wide. I have nowhere to actually hang it, and if I'm being honest, it's kind of ugly. He put a lot of work into it, which makes me feel bad. He went clothes shopping. He said, "I want to get you some shorts, because I know you need them." I said, "Please don't, because I can't always find good shorts that easily, and I want to pick them." He decided to do the grand gesture of buying me bright yellow ass cheek shorts. I don't wear yellow, and I prefer my ass cheeks covered. Reminds me of some guy that came on FFA asking how to buy his girlfriend shorts. He said he'd bought her like 4 different pairs that didn't work, and it's hard to know what she'd like because she never wears shorts, only dresses and skirts. I asked like, "Well dude, why do you keep buying her shorts?" And he was offended. He told me had a surprise for me for Christmas. Was wrapped beautifully and he taunted me with it for days and then finally let me open it. It was a butt plug. I cried. He went home. He bought me a beautiful pendant for our first anniversary. Unfortunately, he did not know that I'm allergic to nickel. It had just never come up, and didn't know to check on the materials used. I had the chain on for an hour when suddenly I broke out in a really bad rash. Fortunately, I had a different chain I could use to still wear the charm. I don't know, she probably needs that finger. He knows I love Harry Potter, so for our first Valentine's Day together several years ago he picked out, on purpose, the ugliest, scrawniest individual flowers from the shop and had the florist put them in a bouquet. When he gave them to me, he said he thought they seemed very evil and creepy. I sometimes wonder what that poor florist was thinking when she wrapped them, and also that my fiancé clearly needs to reread the books. Funniest and ugliest shit I've ever seen though. I think he just thought Harry Potter magic, witches, etc. Halloween creepy. My ex booked a surprise trip to Poland for my birthday, during which he also booked a trip to Auschwitz. Had to wake up at 6 a.m. on my birthday to spend the majority of my 21st birthday at a death camp and being given a tour of gas chambers. My grandmother had given me her first pair of diamond earrings when I was 13 or so. They had been given to her by my grandfather. Huge sentimental value. I wore them every single day. Eventually the silver posts tarnished and one broke when I was 25. I tucked the earrings away safely in my jewelry box for when I could afford to fix them. I moved in with my husband a few months before we got married. I was looking for the earrings to go and get them fixed for our wedding and couldn't find them. At all. I just knew they had somehow gotten lost in the move and was sick over it. Like crying and wailing over this. My grandmother had passed like the month before, so it was a raw wound. Turns out my lovely, dumbass husband had taken the earrings out of my jewelry box and had gotten them repaired already. It was supposed to be a wedding gift. I really thought this was going to end with him throwing them away, and am so relieved that this has a happy ending. Wasn't my but a guy who was interested in me, who knew I was happily dating someone else, sent me a bouquet of flowers when I was having a bad day. The flowers were honestly beautiful and my and I got kind of a chuckle about it, but man, that was inappropriate. A guy sent me a dozen roses once after we went out one night. Problem was, I didn't know it was a date. He was a friend and asked if I wanted to hang out. He thought it was a date, I thought it was just friends hanging out. So awkward when I got those flowers and realized he was on a completely different page. Guys. If you want to date a girl who is your friend, you really need to specify that. Asking to hang out will just make her think you're going out as friends. Don't try to Schrödinger's date it. Mine bought me an expensive 3-month supply of a diet plan which consists of shakes, pills and patches. I was so pissed I didn't even open it. Who gives someone a diet plan for Christmas? Well, he technically never became a but a guy the first briefly dated, serenaded me by singing, and playing on the guitar, Miss You, by Blink-182. Plus some John Mayer song I can't remember. No, not Your Body is a Wonderland, thank God. I mega cringed. It was our first date and kissed him to make him shut up. My first boyfriend did not take it well when I told him we had some relationship issues, namely his codependency, and he began to cry sitting on his bed. He pulled me into his lap, cradled me like a baby, and cried while he rocked back and forth and sang I Will Follow You Into the Dark by Death Cab for Cutie. I'd never known confusion and fear like that before or since. Had a guy hold his hand on my face and stare into my eyes while singing She Looks Like Sex by Mike Posner. Cringiest experience of my life so far. For our first Christmas as a married couple, my husband went last-minute shopping at Costco. I ended up with pillows, towels, and granny panties. Took me to flower shop to get me bouquet of flowers in a heavy vase I had to carry to his apartment where he said I should leave it. I was very uncomfortable about the whole thing and did tell him I didn't like how he went about it. It was just so weird. Whenever I got flowers from other guys they brought them to me and let me keep them lol. So he bought himself flowers but made you carry it? Lol. My granddad passed away on my mum's birthday. My now ex thought the ideal way to cheer me up was to book me a trip to Paris the following year, to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of his passing. I can see the good intention behind it, but I really just wanted to be with my family. Especially seeing as it was also my mum's birthday. For my birthday one year all I wanted was to go to the melting pot. I had never been. Now I know it's not that great, but anyway. And he decided it would be better to make fondue himself at our place. Sounds nice, but he misread the recipe and used way too much nutmeg. It was absolutely disgusting, but I tried to be polite. The worst part was he got so defensive when I tried to suggest the recipe wasn't quite right. We ended up fighting and he insisted it tasted great and I was just picky. Eventually he admitted it was inedible. It's not the worst, but it's funny. I came home late from work and he had a romantic dinner laid out. I was extremely surprised because, well, he's not the cook in our relationship, for good reason lol. He also just used whatever was lying around in the fridge house. He had attempted to cook lamb. I personally don't care for it. I bought it to cook for him, not me. It was just one single sad lonely piece of lamb medallion on each of our plates with all the juices dripping out. Then he popped open some wine his boss had given him a year ago. Again, not a fan of wine. I took a bite and a sip to be polite, but it wasn't that great. A plus for effort though. I still appreciated the thought and told him so. Edit. I also did the dishes and cleaned up because he cooked, lol. Took me to a fancy restaurant and told me I could be better at sex and suggested a sex book that I read. I cried. Right there in the restaurant I cried in my fancy dress. Nowadays I would react completely opposite. In my defense, at the time I was 19 and he was my first, only lover. I loved him and we were still pretty new in our relationship.